I think that this has been just a shock to a lot of people. It wasn't just an attack on Charlie, it was an attack on what he stood on. And these are values that, you look at what happened in November, that a majority of the rest of the nation actually supported and stood for. And they put that on there. So this is, I don't even know if people are even referring to it as a proper term, but I believe that this is a political assassination and a terrorist attack.
Obviously, since this has happened, there are a lot of people on both sides. Like our governor, for example, the flag is flying at half staff, and other Democratic lawmakers have put out their statements. I guess how have you been taking that? Is that something that you've noticed and have been, feeling like there is some sort of togetherness at this point?
I thank the governor for actually putting that statement out, and he was very quick to do it too. And there's mixed answers all across the board on some of that, but this is a time too. Charlie wasn't just a political figure. What he wanted to be known for was for his faith, his family, and his service to his country. That's what he wanted to be known for, and unfortunately he was killed because of his hobby. And he deserves to be honored for his fight for people to have freedom of speech, freedom of debate. Charlie never killed anybody. He never attacked anybody, he never hit anybody. And he simply just wanted to talk to everybody. And I think anybody who's just reaching out, trying to say thank you to the family, thank you for him, and recognizing that his service was actually just rooted in being able to practice what we all cherish, the First Amendment. And so I think that's what's reflective of what we're seeing right now, where the flag is at half staff. And again, I think anybody who's actually put out a statement, reached out to the family, because we have to realize that there is now 2 little kids that don't have a father. There's now a wife who doesn't have a husband. And there's a hole in a large portion of a lot of people who actually cared for him. I was working with his staff just the day before for another event in the Central Valley, and he was just in the Central Valley last week. It was his last event. And his last event was in a place here, and I put out a statement just talking about essentially why he cared. Why would he come to the Central Valley? Why is he coming to California? Why is he doing this when he's made it as a millionaire? He's built a multi-million-dollar business. He's got millions of people that support him across this nation. He's got so much, but instead he was focusing on California and taking care of this community only because he cared, because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to go on any more tours. He didn't have to start all of this, but he's been doing this for a long time because he cares so much about this nation. So I'm just grateful for anybody that's showing that kind of respect to the family.
You personally, are you feeling support from your colleagues on the east side of the aisle?
I would say that, I think some people are timid on what they want to do. I think the rhetoric and this political violence that is happening right now, sometimes comes from the words that are being used. When you are describing members across the aisle, the minority party, as Nazis, or you're talking about a reference back to Jim Crow laws, which were stated on the floor earlier this week. This is a time for them to learn what is actually happening, that there are people being systematically hunted, and it's not on that side of the aisle. So I do believe that they should have a level of compassion and actually understand the reality that we're in. This was a terrorist attack. This was a political assassination that happened simply because somebody else had a different value than they did. So when they use this rhetoric, they have to realize what they're actually talking about, when they're actually referring to, when nobody's referring to that on the minority side. And so what I would say is, I do believe that the temperature has lowered a little bit since then, and I am grateful for that, but this sense of disdain that's still out there is still felt. I know it. And I think a lot of people feel that as well.